So Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga says over 31,000 teaching posts are still to be filled in the country. This is despite the number of qualified teachers still without jobs. Motshekga was responding to parliamentary questions. But let's now get a sense of the minister's admission and some reaction to it. And for that, we are joined by the Executive Director of Naptosa, Mr. Basil Manuel. Basil, good morning to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. 31,000, that's quite a number. I mean, is that a staggering number? I believe that number would have been 24,000 in the previous year.
Lady, good morning, and thanks for having me. Yes, it is a staggering number, but I think there's a context that was omitted. The minister meant to add permanently, not filled permanently. So there are teachers in the majority of these posts. So they are temporary teachers. That doesn't lessen the problem, but it does mean that they aren't completely vacant. That's the first point to make. However, the fact that these are temporary teachers does create a certain amount of instability within the department, because you can't have 30,000 temporary people who don't know if the next term they will have a post. And as a result, the conclusion we are reaching is that it's unstable. It is unsure not only for schools but for teachers as well. And this leads to people moving around more than they ought to.
So thank you for that clarity, because it does paint a much clearer picture. But let's now get into what's happening with the flow of teachers. You talk about the lack of stability. I think that's a really important one. But are we bleeding teachers, Basil?
First of all, lady, what we need to ensure is that people do get appointed. And if we don't appoint people, yes, we will start losing teachers. They will go abroad. They will look for more stable appointments abroad. They will go into the private sector from the public schools, which we actually need to ensure that we keep the best teachers in our public schools as well. But the best teachers get lured by the promise of permanency, the more stable surroundings, etc. So yes, we start losing large numbers of teachers. But at the moment, the aggregate number of teachers being trained against the number of people leaving balances out. But that's only half the story. The other half is that we're not necessarily training for the right posts. We're not training for a foundation phase, for example. There are many people not qualified for the foundation phase that are there. And this is also part of the problem of appointments. So we want to ensure, as a union, together with the other unions, that the teachers get appointed permanently. There's no good reason, lady, why this is not happening. Remembering that after 3 months, a post-level 1 teacher can get recommended for appointment. Now the question is this a management problem at school, or is this the districts? When we check on our schools, they are complaining that they are making recommendations. So the districts and the provinces are holding up the problem, or the problem with the hold-up. And that is where we need to crack the whip, and we need to ask the hard questions. This has nothing to do with shortage of money. These are posts that schools are entitled to.
You know, Basil, I wonder, though, if we, perhaps when you speak to teachers as well, what sort of perceptions you're hearing about whether or not they actually want the permanency. I mean, we hear concerns around teachers complaining about poor learner behavior. Then there's the, assessment of curriculums. There's what they complain about, a lack of resources in some of our public schools, certainly an issue. And then even the perception that, teaching is a low-income job, so we're not encouraging the young ones to enter the sector of teaching. And then are we able to keep them? So are we making the work of teaching attractive?
I want to agree that it can be more attractive. But I would like to believe that when you're in a job, if you don't have permanency, you can't make the big decisions. You can't make the decisions about your personal life. Simple things like buying a motor car. You can't buy a car if you don't know if you won't have a job in 3 months' time. So that type of thing encourages the need and the want to become permanent. But yes, there's a small group of temporary teachers that talk to us as well, that say, we prefer to be temporary because we get a slightly better salary, because some of the benefits are paid in cash. So they are paid in the salary. But that is the smallest minority. It's not good for the system to have 30,000 plus teachers that are temporary.
Yeah. This week a story came across the news wires that that really, really worried me. It was coming out of the Free State. Essentially what it said was that grade 8 and 9 learners in the province, their failure rate was so staggering in their first crucial test of the year. I think grade 8's 83.5% of them failed that first test. And I thought to myself, all right, there's something happening there. If just at that level, it should be a simple enough curriculum when you're in grade 8. We're not talking about, grade 10 or grade 11, for instance. 83% of learners in the province are failing. Are we doing something wrong at foundation phase? You talked about, a shortage of teachers there. Because ultimately, if we get foundation phase right, a lot of the things become easier for the learners in the long run, correct?
Naledi, you're absolutely correct. But let me first deal with the Free State issue in grade 8.
Sure.
Grade 8 is an amalgam of learners coming from many, many schools into a single school. And to get the pitch right in terms of the standard is always a bit of a hiccup. And then things settle down as the learners adjust to one another, etc. So the big fish in one primary school becomes the little fish in a high school. And that is the norm. So I don't think we need to put on the panic buttons yet, because that is how it normally happens. But the point about foundation phase can't be stressed more. We have to get foundation phase right. We have to get qualified, suitably trained teachers in the foundation phase. You can't complain about reading and then we are placing teachers not because of their own fault, but because there are no teachers for the foundation phase. We place them there and they haven't been taught how to teach reading. Reading is an enormously important skill. And if you don't know how to teach reading, it's not going to come to you in a dream. That doesn't happen. So we've got to get foundation phase right. Our foundation must be strong. If we sort that out, we won't need to do all the little tricks and gimmicks that we have become accustomed to in matric, where children never have a holiday, where they are at school 24/7, every weekend, every holiday. That is now cramming kids with the stuff that they should have learned over the 12 years. So, Naledi, foundation phase, we must get that right. The Bella Bill, although controversial for many and so on, one of the important points is getting grade R's into the formal system. Yes, there's a money issue and there's issues of infrastructure, etc. That aside, if we don't get that right also, we delay fixing the foundation phase and getting learners school ready early enough. So this is a punt to say, let's attend to the foundation. We know any foundation is the basis of whatever goes on top of it.
Yeah. Have you been heard, though? I know that Naptosa for weeks has actually raised the alarm around that shortage of teachers at foundation phase and also grade 1, 2, and 3, I think it is, where you saw a shortage. Maybe explain what that shortage is looking like. So is it teachers that are not fit to teach foundation phase, or we simply don't have enough? What is the issue there at such an early phase of our education process?
We are not training enough foundation phase teachers, simply because in our belief, and of course research also shows it, there's a bit of a disjuncture between the need and what is being trained. And we've asked universities, the department has been involved in this, we've also asked them to get more synergy between the departmental needs and what the universities pump out as people being trained. Now, we give out bursaries. Those bursaries must also be more directed. But the vast majority of people don't get bursaries who train to become teachers. And even there, that's where the university's gatekeeping must come in. We must train for the need, not just get people qualified. As a result, we have enough teachers qualifying, but still a shortage in key areas. And that is where our problem lies. Yeah. So now we have people who are good in themselves, but they are not qualified and they don't have all the skills, and neither are we upgrading them in the foundation phase. And is the Funza Lushaka bursary scheme for teachers a green shoot, Basil? Yes, the Funza Lushaka bursary is there, but remember, everybody thinks that Funza Lushaka trains the vast majority of teachers. It doesn't. But those bursaries are important, and they must be directed. We know we've got new subjects as well, and we talk about coding and robotics, etc. But we've also got foundation phase, so we must balance between the new and getting the foundation right. Sure.
When you mentioned the coding and robotics, we just realized how much work has to be done, and we've got quite a long road to walk. But thank you so much for speaking to us, Basil. We really do appreciate it. Basil Manuel is, of course, the Executive Director of Naptosa, speaking to us about really how we plug the gaps, what needs to be done to fill what the Education Minister says is over 31,000 teaching posts still needing to be filled in the country.